Pardon?
And look at
Wait.
and look at Bob Benoit back from his month of cruising the
Hey,
Bahamas.
that's right. Hey, Bob. How are you?
Yep. Good to be back.
You look well
You
tanned
look
and
re-
fit.
You look refreshed.
Well, I'm down in Nashville with my
Nice.
brother here.
Aha. How is he doing, by the way?
He's doing real well.
Good.
Real well. The only thing he's got is his one leg is still kind of neutral, you know. It doesn't have any sensation from it, but he can walk.
Okay.
We went golfing the other day, and you know, I was going to be playing the golf, and then he was going to do the putting. Well, then he grabbed his club and he started to hit, and he was driving it. I was hitting the ball into the water. He was just driving it like he typically did. So he may get back to golfing.
Sounds good. Good.
One would hope. Hey, Norm.
And Norm, you
That
look like you're in a
computer's doing the
Calladius.
same thing
Norm's
as
in a
last week,
Calladius scope.
Norm.
You're trying to
Yeah.
get into the Matrix, Norm.
I know, huh? I don't know what's the matter with my camera. What's wrong with it?
Is it a standalone camera attached to your
No, it's part of the computer.
or is part of the computer itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
You look particularly spiffy today, Norm. What's going on?
He does. He looks like he got a haircut. Looks like he's tan. He's got his white shirt on. Yeah. Looks
And a
like
whole
he's going
bunch
to
of
the
the hair is cut.
Ah. Oh.
He's looking good.
So let's start with the prayer, Tom.
Go ahead, lead us. Would anybody like to lead a prayer?
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen.
Hail Mary, full of
Oh,
grace.
the
The
Lord
Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners,
Now.
the hour of our death.
Amen.
Amen. And so I had a fascinating experience on Sunday, a religious experience, not a St. Paul type of thing, but so we were camping over near a city called Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is like center north of the state. And so Sunday was Divine Mercy Sunday. So we went to the 10 o'clock service, and the priest was from the Cameroon, and he was permanently assigned to this parish. And he spent his whole, what I could understand of the homily, I got the context because his accent speaking English was still pretty powerful, but he spent the whole homily talking about what is this Divine Mercy Sunday. And I do the chaplet every day. And he said, now this afternoon, I want all of you to come back, because from 1:30 to 3 o'clock, we've got 3 priests that we're going to be hearing confessions. And we will hear confessions until the last one of you is gone, you know. And then at 3 o'clock, the deacon, they have 3 or 4 deacons, and one of the deacons then did the Divine Mercy chaplet service. And so I wanted to go to confession, because if you go to confession and communion, you know, John Paul has granted a plenary indulgence, or that I can use all of the plenary indulgences I can ever get. So I went at 2 o'clock, an hour before, and the whole confessional thing was packed. Because they had 3 priests, they had different sections. Do you want to go see this priest after? And I said, you know, I'll go see Father Kong, who was the Cameroon guy. It took me until about 10 to 3 till I can finally get into the box with him. But what I was impressed by is the hundreds of people that went to reconciliation. It was just like a close to Jesus moment to see all these folks who said, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm going to go to confession, and then you do the chaplet. And so the contrast is, in my parish, for the whole week, the priests were not holding confessions. You know, the asshole pastors that I have, excuse my French, but you know, they were too busy. And so I'm wondering, you know, and they have lay people who do the chaplet, and then our deacon comes in and does benediction. So it was just wonderful to be a visitor in this other parish. And at the Kiss of Peace, they gave everyone a couple of minutes to turn around and greet people and things like that, which our pastors don't allow. And they had communion under both species. And this is the same diocese that I mean, this parish in Winston-Salem is in the Charlotte diocese, and we've always thought at my church that the reason we don't do the Kiss of Peace or have communion under both substances is because the bishop has not said do it. And so it was another one of those things where visiting other Catholic churches can really be a fun experience. And it is fun. It is fun. Just fun. So I thought I would get that off my chest, but it was wonderful. So
That was great.
It was great, Norm. It was really, yeah. And it makes me realize how critical the pastor of a parish is to the lifeblood of a parish.
You bet. Yes.
Yeah. And I would have loved to have been in one of your guys' parishes. I really would have. I think it would have been a kick,
Yeah, but
They fought all the time.
we would have understand what you were saying if you came to confession to us.
Yep, I know. Well, you're not my confessor. You're not my confessor. Yeah. And in a week and a half, I'm going to see both Tom and Norm. And so I don't know that I have the courage to go to confession to either one of those guys, but if I needed to, I wouldn't hesitate to do it.
Well, see, the problem is if you know a priest too well, he might remind you of some of the things you've missed.
There you go.
Oh, I had never thought of that. Never thought of that. Yeah, never thought of that.
Well, Tim, your contribution to this group at times as you get into confessional mood.
He does. Yeah.
I do. Yeah. And
Yeah.
some people say I just talk too much, but yeah. I hope you don't think so.
Don't listen to him.
No.
I went to
And so
confession last Monday, and he gave me a rosary to pray. That's how bad I am.
Oh my God.
My gosh.
This
You
is
still
good.
do that?
And when you pray the rosary, do you continue to thee and thou back in the 15th century, 16th
No.
century?
I wish it would. Makes it more holy.
Tim, is that why you continue to thee and thou rather than you?
No.
Makes you more
I'm the one
holy?
that continued to thee and thou, and that was a bad influence on Tim.
No, not at all.
Although I know we've had this conversation about thee and it's interesting. It's sort of all over the place. With regard to confession, I have the luxury of having my spiritual, in the old days called a spiritual director, my co-journeyer toward God, who is a Benedictine priest. He's the abbot, though they use the ecumenical term prior, which they prefer for the abbot. And he's my confessor, but he's my spiritual director, but he's also my confessor. And so I simply alert him at the start of a session that at the end of the session would like to shift to absolution mode. And so he just grabs his stole
And that's how I did it with Warren Holler in the same way.
Did you really? Oh, Gary. Okay.
Yeah.
I do it the same way with my confessor, my spiritual director.
And I do too.
Yep,
It's wonderful. It's just really delightful. The bias I have sort of because of my clinical background, he also happens to be a clinical psychologist. He was on the staff of the Menninger for
I've
years.
heard of that. Yeah.
You've heard of it, yeah, before he
Yeah.
before he joined the Camaldoli branch, the Italian branch, hooray, of the Benedictines. So they have the monastery at Big Sur, and they have the urban monastery here in Berkeley, which is, as the crow flies, about 5 minutes from where I live. So
Wow.
I worship there during the week and on weekends, because I do elder care, senior ministry through a local Catholic parish. I choose to go there, even though I really don't get fed very much. It's a very traditional parish. The pastor's a sweetheart, and he is Vietnamese. He was part of the recruiting for the Diocese of Oakland 10, 15 years ago when they anticipated a shortage. And so he's got a good heart. And what I like about him is that he really does smell of the sheep, but he's very traditional and very conservative. And he just preaches off the cuff, basically walks up and down the center aisle. And he'll start talking to the kids and stuff. It's kind of cute in its own way, but I don't get much, but I do get a lot at the Benedictine monastery. And this year I treated myself to a mini retreat during the Triduum by going to the services of the urban monastery, the Benedictines, here in the hills above the Graduate Theological Union and the University of California, a section of Berkeley lovingly referred to because of the many seminaries there as Holy Hill.
Oh, yeah.
How are the hermits at Big Sur doing?
As far as thanks for asking. I got a very detailed everyone did who's on the mailing list from the prior there. There are just 2 currently holding down the place. I almost said the fort, because they're completely isolated, road washed out, US 1 to the north and to the south. And when I say washed out, the pictures are dramatic. I mean, it's a whole section of mountainside that's just a great big hole. Nothing is there north and south. So all the monks who are normally in residence, that's about 20 to 25 currently. There are no hermits at the present time, though this place at Big, have any of you ever been Immaculate Heart Hermitage at Big Sur?
I was
Yes.
there overnight one time.
So you know, it's a very amazing place, both physically. They're up at about 1,500 feet above Big Sur, in a kind of a dell, a little valley in the mountainside. And it's a monastery and a hermitage, though the hermitage no longer consists of caves the way it did in Italy over the last century. The cells tend to be Winnebagos that are located back in the woods in the forest.
You're kidding.
They're located right in the Los Padres National Forest, and so the cells are for those who would like to be completely isolated in the retreat. And you can arrange. People do that. I mean, and occasionally there's even a Catholic. The folks I have run into, have been literally. Have you read any of Pico Iyer's stuff? Do you know who he is? You don't know Pico Iyer? Iyer. At any rate, I don't want to sound scoldy or anything, but then you want to take a look at his interpretations of Graham Greene are truly remarkable. If you like Graham Greene at all, you read any of his stuff, but the way he reinterprets Graham Greene, and his books are amazing. Well, he kind of goes up there. Every now and then there'll be a piece in the New York Times travel magazine, and that's the last one was a pictorial on the Big Sur Monastery. But he talks about his experience there of quiet and solitude, and that being his absolutely favorite place. You don't have to worry about getting away from your cell phone and computer because there is no. It's that isolated. There's no signal that gets into the place, and it self-sustains they generate their own electricity, they have their own water supply, their own little gardens and stuff. So when the road washes out like it does, and that's what you asked, and I'm being more long-winded than I probably need to be, all the monks who are normally there in residence are outplaced, including we have 2 senior monks who are both in their late 80s who are in residence at the Urban Monastery in Berkeley currently. And the rest are located in a variety of settings, retreat conference centers. The Camaldoli Benedictines also have a couple of other houses along the Pacific coast. So,
Bob, what is his name? Tycho Brahe, or what was his name?
He's the astronomer.
Yeah.
How do you spell it? How do you spell it?
I'm pretty sure it's Iyer. If you just Google Picoiyer.
Okay.
Yeah, he's fabulous. He's a fabulous writer too. And his descriptions as a non-Catholic of his time at the monastery and describing the place is fabulous. I jokingly say that, like the Urban Monastery here in Berkeley, that every now and then at liturgy, I even run into a Catholic on occasion. But it draws from the likes of the Berkeley community in so many ways.
Yeah. I've loved Graham Greene's books, and it would be great to hear somebody else's take on it.
Oh yes, you would. Yeah. I'm
Norm, way back in 67. Oh my goodness, your most great friend, who is now living up in Northern California.
Charlie?
I'm sorry?
Charlie?
Charlie and I were on the third summer, just before last theology, and we stopped by the Camaldoli's place. Thought we were just gonna just stop, enjoy the view and leave. And the gatekeeper, he says, "I'm the gatekeeper," came out and said, "You're going to stay for a while, aren't you?" And we said, "Well, we can stay for a little while." And he said, "Well, how about lunch?" And then it was, "How about dinner?" And then it was, how about the evening? It's wonderful up here in the morning. And we were there for 3 nights. This guy kept us there. And I sometimes really miss the hospitality of so many people way back in the 60s, back in the late 50s. Warm people, particularly the Irish, for me. I had trouble with a lot of other folks, but welcoming, conversation, meals, people that they're gone. And I wish they were back. This traditionalist guy that did the sacrament of the anointing, anointed me before going into a surgery, as I mentioned to you before. So welcoming, so engaging, you know, it was wonderful. Anyway, 3 days, and we thought we'd be there 3 hours maybe.
How did
Yeah,
those monks, how did those monks get down from the from that monastery when the road was completely washed out? How'd they get out of there?
There is a mountain trek cross-country four-wheel drive vehicle, plus the cowboys in the area take good care of them. They come in horse and mule back, bringing in the basic supplies. The biggest issue that they have had this winter, of course, is having enough fuel. It's not propane, it's standard diesel to operate their generators because they generate their own electricity. Sidebar, there's a big fund drive going on. They are going solar as soon as they can raise enough funds, so they don't have to be dependent except as an emergency backup, the way many homeowners might if they have solar panels. But they do have that kind of access. They also have their own helicopter landing strip, which they do use with this elderly community of monks. The helicopter kind of knows how to fly between the helicopter pad at the hospital up toward Monterey and in that area. So and they have utilized that a number of times in the past in an emergency situation. But for all practical purposes, Bob, they don't go in and out, and that's why right now, and they're saying at the earliest, the road will probably to the I'm not sure if it's north or south, but it's washed out in both ways, won't be open before summertime.
Wow.
Because
I
it's going
don't-
to take that long for the engineers to take a look and say, how do we want to do this and all that rest of that stuff, and then haul in the amount of soil that they would need.
You know, the way they placed some of those little hermitages, Charlie and I were placed in one where you had a little tiny backyard, and you'd walk up to the fence, and you were up in the hills,
right.
you know,
Sounds like you.
ocean, and I
Right.
can't figure out how they didn't get washed out totally. You know, there's so much rain.
Right. Yeah. But they are, if you may not recall, but it's sort of, as you look at it, and you almost have to see it from the air geographically to see that they're located in a bit of a dell. I mean, it literally is like a flat area in this part of the peaks of the Los Padres National Forest that's flat. And of course, they also help flatten it too. So it's pretty secure.
You be quiet.
If you can sort of visualize a windy road that's about 3.5, 4 miles long, that's their private road leading up
Come here.
from the Big Sur Highway,
Mhm.
and what's washed out is not their road
It's okay.
this time,
It's okay.
because in the past that has washed out and along with the highway. So, oh, and just a quick reference to Pico Iyer. It's been a while since I had done his full name is lovely. It's Siddharth Pico Raghavan Iyer.
Which is
So he's known as Pico Iyer, Picoiyer, a British-born essayist and novelist. And it goes on and on, chiefly known for so and so, and it talks about his background training. was a Guggenheim Fellow, and he's a pretty bright fellow. But his essayist, novelist, with a major focus on novels related to novels and essays related to travel. And that probably is what brought him to Big Sur. Enough about Pico.
So-
Enough about Pico.
So,
You
Bob,
won't-
are you going to give us an assignment that will be tested on next week?
Let me see. Let me see. No, this time there will be no quiz.
Oh, okay.
All right.
There'll be no quiz, and that's because I know all you guys are using AI, one of the AI programs to do your quizzes anyway, so forget it. Which tongue in cheek, so to said, have any of you tried? I haven't, but I'm wondering, have any of you tried using, say,
Chat GPT.
Chat Tom, what I would expect maybe did to give it an assignment like give me a 10-minute sermon for the third Sunday after Easter for a congregation with this education level. Have you tried that yet?
Not yet, not to that much detail, but
You
the
have tried it though.
first thing that I tried, yeah, I did try a few things. First thing I tried was tell me a joke about a progressive and traditionalist Catholic in a bar.
Oh, well, that's easy.
And they were extremely unfunny.
Oh,
There
okay.
was absolutely no sense of humor. You know, he said something about they'd argue about changes in the church.
Combative or what?
Well, I don't know. It was a
Was
funny, no
that-
matter how I asked for the joke, it became a kind of a question and answer.
So it was far from a minister, a rabbi, and a priest walk into a
Yeah.
bar.
Well,
Far from one of those.
you know, I was expecting something of that. No, that was over a month ago, so I should try it again. I've done a few more, which were very, very unmemorable.
Yeah.
So
I hear there's an updated, as a matter of fact, today's New York Times has an article on 30, it's really kind of an interesting read. 36 examples, 36 different people who use the chatbot in every from day to day. And it
Hmm.
covers just about every base. And they give examples of the and so that's worth a peek if you're curious at all about what the heck it can do. And some of the examples were rather enlightening, you know, including a busy mother with kids who have medical dietary needs. And she said that she spent hours a week in planning their meals because it had to avoid peanuts, nuts of any kind, and also gluten-free. And she said in a minute or two, it gave a meal planning for the week. She said that was truly remarkable. It would have taken her hours or days to research that much detail. So that kind of a thing, as long as it
kind of
doesn't
thing.
involve a sense of humor.
and they say that, you know, if you're faced with reading an article that takes a half hour or so, you can actually just upload the URL and it will give you a summary of the article.
There
What
were
were,
several,
what were
several of
those things were called? What, Classics Illustrated back in the day?
They
You
were
know,
called
when you
cla-
didn't,
or Cliff Notes.
Cliff Notes, when you didn't want to read Dickens's novels, you know, and you said, "Bet I got to write an essay about it," so you could
Right.
say, "Okay, here's this illustrated comic book that gave you the thrust of it."
Yeah.
That was early AI, I guess.
But now, of course, they also have there's a booming business, growing business in what do you call it? And using AI to discover AI in somebody's writings.
Oh,
right.
Oh,
You
geez.
know, that college professors can use, can
right.
let their students work through it, and they can tell you just exactly where they plagiarized.
I'm still
That-
trying to figure out whether or not the humor was flat because it came from AI or because two Catholics in a bar, one conservative and one liberal. I can't imagine what would be funny about that.
Oh, I don't know. Once you get the booze flowing, it might.
Right. So it may not have been the AI program's fault. I mean, just given the nature of the conversation.
Actually, among the Irish, AI does not mean artificial intelligence. It means the artificial inseminator.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
That sounds Irish, all right. I think about half of us know Ralph Platts and Joe Whaling.
Yeah.
Lots of humor comes out of those two guys,
Well, there's opposite ends of the spectrum, aren't they?
aren't they, though?
The pollen here.
Yeah,
If you want to indulge me for a minute or two, I'll tell you an AI joke,
Go for
which in an AI conversation might be fun. There was this Irish widow, her husband died recently. They had a small farm with a single cow. And so the cow came in heat, which lasts usually for about 24 hours. So she went to the neighbor and said to the neighbor, what do I do? He said, you call the AI. So, oh, she said, what's that? He said, the artificial. So she went and she dialed up 223-2341. Is this the AI? It is, ma'am. Well, I'm a widow. I don't know what to do. The cow's in heat. I don't want to lose the 24 hours. Could you come out? I'll be out in 2 hours, ma'am. So this car drives up. This guy gets out with a little case looking like a doctor. And she says to him, everything is readiness. The cow is tethered below in the stall. There's clean towels. There's a basin of hot water. And there's a peg to hang your troughs.
Oh my. All right, I pulled.
A discussion about AI.
It's
Gets too highfalutin, you can deflate.
one of those visualization jokes, right?
Okay, here I pulled up OpenAI chat and pulled up the record of the jokes that I asked. I said, write a joke about a traditionalist Catholic and a progressive Catholic in a bar. So here's one. There are 7 of them that I got so far. Why did the traditionalist Catholic and progressive Catholic walk into a bar? The traditionalist said, I'll have a beer, hold the change. The progressive said, I'll have a beer, let's raise a glass to progress.
Okay.
Here, a traditionalist Catholic, this will go for you. The traditionalist Catholic and a progressive Catholic walk into a bar. The bartender looks at them and says, what is this, some kind of joke?
Well, that's a little better.
That's not too bad. Why did the traditionalist Catholic and the progressive Catholic go into a bar? To argue about the best way to drink beer, because one believed in the traditional method of drinking beer from the chalice, the other believed in the progressive method of drinking from a can. That one's not so good.
Not so funny.
To argue about whose drinks were more transubstantiated. Not so good either.
Oh, jeez.
To argue about
That
who
would work in the seminary, I think, though.
Yeah, that's
Did you tell it to keep working on its joke telling technique?
I may.
See what happens. You probably get the best joke of all.
Yeah.
Hey, Ned, could you,
Hold on just a second. Hold on just a second.
that's
Tom, are
Norm,
you
I guess.
okay?
So,
Hey,
where are we?
Hey, Ned, how about a George Crook update? Do you mind?
Yes.
No,
You don't mind, or you know? No.
I don't know.
I don't mind.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I'm aware you're retiring, but
Okay.
Norm needs to mute himself.
I muted him.
He is.
Yeah.
I was with him Tom, you saw him on Saturday, I think. And I spent the day with him on Wednesday. Betty is very, 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 very worried. She says, I'm with him 24/7, and you don't expect to be aware of subtle changes from day to day, but he has lost weight so rapidly that from one day to the next, it's just scary. And I helped him go to the bathroom at one point, and I was behind him, and my hands aren't that big, and I put my hands around his arms, behind him, and they wrapped almost completely around. It was like taking his skinny wrist up here. So he's wasting away. He's not eating as much as he should. He won't. He tries, but he won't. And he's got a new phenomenon that's going on. I think I mentioned this to Tim. He has these pulmonary problems. He'll be sitting down and get up, and then he describes it as though he moved into a box that has no air in it. And he'll get up and he says he sucks in, he inhales as much air as he can, but in this box that he's in, there's no air. So he gets very little, inhaling. And then he exhales what he was able to inhale, and then it starts all over again. And that lasts not a long time. He doesn't think it lasts a minute. He thinks maybe, I was there for one of these things. It was scary. He'll get up, and then he'll hold himself, and did you, you're nodding your head, Tom, did you experience that?
He wasn't nearly that bad. He was able to walk fairly well from his bed to the dining room table. And he was pretty alert, very alert during Mass. In our chat after Mass, I was a little surprised. He actually did take a piece of chocolate candy, and ate it. But that was...
He likes sweets if he can taste it. He likes salt if he can taste it. Anyway, Betty immediately called his vampire, he calls him. His hematologist is on vacation for the next 2 or so weeks, longer, and was redirected to somebody else, and she wound up with a cardiologist. He has a pacemaker, as you might recall. And I don't know why the cardiologist, perhaps Bob, you can tell us, or somebody can tell us here, but they wound up with a cardiologist, and I believe that he has he's at a cardiologist's this morning. But he had a hematologist, the guy who's taking his Rosenblum's place. He's going to see this cardiologist, and there's something about talking with some kind of what do you call the guys that deal with the lungs? Pulmonologist. Yeah. So he's got lots more people. He said, "My God, what's the universe throwing at me now?" And I said, "It's not the universe, George."
I have a funeral that I have to go do. I'm sorry to have to leave this thing because I was very interested in how George is doing. So
that's about it, Gary. Yeah. He really needs our prayers. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I pray
is he at home or is he in a hospital, Ned?
He's at home, Bob.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's got 2 days a week. He has a caretaker, very, very good caretaker, tall Filipino lady who's sometimes he says she's very annoying because she just seems to hover. She's not there, and then something happens, and boom, she's right there. How can I help? You know.
Yeah. And he's still not in hospice palliative
No.
care.
No, and you know, as you said, that can be just a wonderful place.
That can be such a personal decision. People are afraid from chatting with him, you know. For some people, denial just is a river in Egypt.
Yeah, he does not want to leave home.
Yeah, that would be kind of, it sounds like admitting to, you know, that the end may be in sight.
He's very conscious that it's very close. And you know, he talks about it freely. He says, I don't know why I'm not more anxious or you know, scared or something. But he's taking everything just in stride.
Nice. Yeah, sounds like you're being a good chaplain to him too.
Oh, I see him. If I'm lucky, I see him more than once a week. But he's got Wednesdays that he kind of holds, and that's when I go see him. I get there in the morning and then leave in the evening.
Right, so let me ask this question. I don't know if Frank and Bob know, but I'm coming out week after next, and I'd asked Betty, George's wife, you know, could I come up and see him? And she said, well, she kind of sets aside Wednesdays, I think, for like Ned. And so the plan is that Johnny and Ned and Tom and I are going to go to George's around lunchtime on Wednesday the 3rd. And Tom, I sure hope you are able to do that and celebrate Mass. And Norm has got a conflict, but if that conflict goes away, then Norm and I might drive up from Long Beach to George's. And so, Ned, would our being there be an opportunity for Betty to get out of the house and do some things for herself for a couple of hours? What do you think about that?
She loves it when I come. You know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes after I get there, she's gone. Lately, the caretaker is there, but she loves to be free. And yeah, that would, but you know what, Mass may keep her. I take the Eucharist, and she wants to be there for that. And we make a little ceremony of it. You know, we read scripture and we pray, and it's not, you know, the little formula that's given to you. It's really edifying to see the three of us, or you know, experience the three of us so into it, so the presence of God is there, Jesus, the Holy Spirit. It's just wonderful. Actually, I find it very edifying when that happens.
For you, but for yourself, you mean for yourself?
Oh yeah, and George too, and Betty. I mean, that's why I think she stays. But then, you know, afterwards, she's gone.
So when you go see him, and Tom, when you went last week, I mean, what is George's tolerance for visitation?
Well, I thought, you know, given all that we had been talking about, that it would be lower than what it was. He would, you know, I did see him beginning to tire after. I think we visited about a half hour after Mass.
Okay.
Betty seemed to enjoy that, and he did too. And then I sort of had to take the initiative to say, well, you know, I think I'd better, you know, leave you folks to do what you need to do. So
when I come up, we just play it by ear. Is that kind of the idea?
What was that, Tom? Or
When we just play the amount of time to visit, just play it by ear and see how George is doing.
I think we can just be very clear about asking. He is looking forward to this. He very much wants to be with his brothers. He really does. He didn't ask Betty when he said to you, anytime, come on, anytime. If he had, he would have gotten some parameters and maybe,
Yeah.
given us a little more time because, well, anyway. But I think we just hang in there until we get thrown out, or
Okay.
or we just ask. He will say, "I got to go to sleep."
Get out.
I
Okay.
gotta-
Okay. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Good.
And
Good.
be-
Good.
And be sure to take Betty out to lunch, arrange with the visitor, arrange with the caregiver, for a couple of hours. Say, make her go out with you. Go to some nice place, have lunch and check in, and just see how she's doing.
I've tried to take Betty to lunch, and she says, "No, let me go by myself. I want to go out there and do what I want. Get in the car and drive."
Yeah. Well, just honor whatever her wishes are, but a way of just telling her
Yeah.
that you love her, you care for her, and concerned that she needs to be taking care of herself as part of this whole process.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with those who just ask George. He'll let George. This George is not going to be shy. He'll let you know. I mean, he'll close his eyes and go to
Yeah.
sleep if he's totally
Absolutely.
exhausted, whatever.
Yeah.
He'll
We
let,
were-
he'll let you know.
We were praying.
Come
the
and
rosary.
go.
We were praying the rosary. I think I mentioned this to Tom and Tim. We were both tired, and we started with the glorious mysteries. It was Wednesday, and we resurrection, and we alternated, and then the ascension, and the next one. I don't know how we got to it, but it was the birth of our Lord. And we went from a birth of our Lord to the agony of the garden, and we're all over. And we'd fall asleep momentarily. Both of us would just knock out for, I don't know, 2-3 minutes, and then we'd wake up. One of us would wake up and start, and somehow we would be in a different place. Anyway.
How lovely. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? I heard someone say, I think it was you, Ned, that at some point George had kind of sent an indicator that he knew the time was short.
Yes.
Does anyone engage him on that I mean, that may be him asking to talk a little bit more about what's coming.
Well,
And with prayer obviously is a great advantage and very consoling, etc. But it seems to me a holy conversation that he's giving a little bit of an opening there for what I would call a holy conversation. Am I right, or am I out?
No, I've been hoping to get into that kind of a conversation, and to talk about feelings, expectations, faith,
right?
All the panoply of things that go on when one really can't but consider our mortality.
Yeah.
And we'll start. Betty started one time. The three of us were there, and she said, "George, shouldn't we talk about how long we have?" And he said, yeah, could be a week, could be a month. And I said, "Well, how do you feel about that?" And he said, "Well, I don't know how I feel. I'm not scared. I'm not anxious. It's weird to me," he said. And then Betty asked something else, and then he popped out of it. He didn't and Betty and I tried to get back into it, and he wouldn't engage. And I don't think that it was fear or anything else. He either just didn't want to, or psychologically he just wasn't ready. I have no idea. I tried another time, not this time that I was there, but the time before last. And he did pretty much the same thing. He said about the universe. He says that this being able to breathe. He says that's a little scary, but I know that it's going to go away. It only lasts 20, 30, 40 seconds. And then he begins to catch his breath and he can breathe and he's fine.
Right. Yeah.
That's on the physical. It's interesting because you said that he wasn't afraid. He's not scared and he's not anxious, but it's weird.
Yes.
And weird kind of contains scared and anxious.
Yeah, what's that mean? Yeah. And one of the things
I'm not trying to psychologize him. I'm just trying to raise the question of that so often with people in this situation, they send out a signal and for someone to grab onto to say, where do you want to go with that? Or, the kind of thing you were talking about trust in the Lord and that kind of thing. I'm just I don't know.
No,
I'm hearing undertones of that.
Yeah, tailing off what you're saying there, Frank. One of the entrees is sometimes picking up on, the end of life kind of scenario. Who would you like to be there? Do you want them to you want anyone to hold your hand? What would you like? Do you want family members there? You get the idea, roughly, sort of. That'll give you an entree. Tim, you've had some experience as part of involved hospice, and I don't know how many end of life experiences you've had with people, but that often is an entree. And then you read about the end of life business to sort of tell the people who are close to you, like the Bettys in your life. You don't have a whole lot of time to tell them how much you love them. And also to say, anything that's happened that I may have done to this would be the Georges of this world, to basically say, I'm so sorry for any time I may have hurt you. I hope you do forgive me. That's another whole entree area. I forgive you for anything in the past.
The other thing that I can add to this, and I think, Frank, you are absolutely right because you have been through it with your wife, is that those are little clues, they're little hints. But something that I found to be useful, not only with my hospice patients, but with family members, is there anybody you would like to see? Is there anybody you'd like to talk to? Is there anything that I can do for you? And just make that be so open-ended. And you're not putting a date certain on his death. We all know we're dying. Let's be honest, guys. We know we're having. But and that's why, Ned, it made me feel good when you said that he is looking forward to this group of us coming in and seeing him in a week or so. I think I'm really in Bob C's camp. I don't always understand why there is this resistance to involving hospice at the end of life. And so that because Betty could have good support, Ned. She could have a hospice volunteer come in a couple times a week for 3 or 4 hours to give her a break. And so I just really wonder if she is aware of what are the benefits of hospice care.
I'll talk with her again about him. We've talked about it once or twice. But she does have Nelda is her name, tall, very attentive Filipino lady, gentle, gentle hands, he calls her. But he wants to be home. He wants to be around familiar surroundings.
Yeah.
Well, he can do a hospice at
Well,
home.
this would be home
And-
hospice that we're talking about.
Yeah, not hospital.
75 or 80% of hospice care in the last 5 years has shifted to home hospice. It's unusual to go into a hospital situation that would have a program these days, and same is true for nursing home and nursing facilities. The most of the hospice care is done, more than half. So approaching 75%, according to something I came across recently, home hospice care. And another quick comment, tailing off what Tim was saying, and a couple of you are also saying, would be, I can't imagine a physician in this day and age, well, maybe I can imagine, not being happy to hand off the care to a hospice physician. I mean, this is their specialty area that they're trained in. I hate to think, it's hard to not think cynically, but of course they're getting still, all the specialists are continuing to get fees, and the hospice specialist is trained to handle end of life kind of issues, and having someone like that available. And also, I don't have to tell Tim, these hospice nurses are gangbusters sometimes. The videos that you have been sending me, I don't know if you sent out to the others, but
No.
those are mini classes in end of life care, and she's very easy to look at. And and they're marvelous in 7 minutes in terms of cutting right through the issues. And boy, is she deeply spiritual in the best sense of the word, without God here, God there. You just get the light shining through her, that she is a strong believer. And so at any rate,
on Wednesday, it was funny. He said, do you know Margot? And I said, Margot.
That here, so you could.
And he said, Margot, I think her last name is Roby. And I said, oh, yeah. And he says, wow. and he says, I don't want to see her in a movie.
Well, St. Thomas Aquinas did praise God for the good, the true, and the beautiful.
Yes.
One thing is, I don't know if there's a way to tell George this, but I found that our discussions about George have been helpful to me as someone who, as Tim said, isn't, the odds that I'll die in the next 10 years or 5 even are much higher than that I won't.
Yeah. That goes for
So-
all of us,
Yeah. So there is a certain sense in which, some of the things that I think we've shared around George, I find have been helpful to me in
Me too.
thinking about
Yeah.
right, right.
100%
what's
agree.
coming, however it comes.
Yeah.
Very-
And a while back, I had shared with you, in light of today's conversation, that document called The 5 Wishes. And if you may not, for any number of reasons, not have had a chance to look at it, but even in terms of today's conversation, talking with the Georges of this world, the way it poses in 3 or 4 paragraphs, and the opportunity for you to know what the important issues are around end of life can be useful when you are there as a friend. And so it's delightful. It's very well done. And as I had said, it was put together by a Catholic physician who was spending time with Mother Teresa in Calcutta while she was still there. It's sometimes called the Mother Teresa document, but it's generally available. You don't have to pay for it or anything. Though a lot of these sites will be very happy to charge you $5 to send it to you or give you permission. There's no charge. It's free. It's made available right on, if you just Google the 5 Wishes document, and it'll take you right there and everything. But it's a great reminder. It is for me, echoing what Frank just said about how helpful this conversation is among ourselves. Hey, none of us getting any younger here.
Yeah. You know, well,
No.
we had a brief conversation about some doctors. Medicine is going nuts right now. I think it's in a bad state, and that's a whole nother subject. But George said something like, they don't care about us old folks, a lot of them. One of the reasons I went out to the University of California, Irvine, and found myself a gerontologist, because, it seems to me if anybody's going to care about an old dude, they would, and she does. She's wonderful. But some guys, when this came up in the context of Rosenblum not being available whenever he needs him. He's not there. Now he's on vacation. He doesn't respond timely, stuff like that. So that is something there that weighs on, I think, him. It weighs on me, that you need to talk with someone who really, doesn't just say, well, this guy's 80 years old. Why do I have to worry that much about this guy? We'll make him comfortable, or I don't need to spend time here because this is not going to yield a whole lot of good results. But I talked to my son about that. He says, yeah, there's a lot of guys like that right now.
And going back to something that Bob said, in my community, I would say half of the physicians are very hesitant to make a hospice referral. They're very hesitant to do it. And I don't know if it's ego. I don't know what the reasons are, but the struggle for hospice and hospice staff is trying to convince doctors in my community that, look, this is a valuable. Medicare will cover all of the medical costs. Medicare will cover, if George and Betty are paying for this woman to come in, hospice will provide that, provide a CNA to come in. But there's a reluctance, and I don't know why there would be a reluctance, except the loss of control or the loss of income, if you're cynical. So the other thing that kind of ties into this, there's been a number of articles I've read about the crisis in elder care in this country. My former wife's husband was just admitted to hospice this last week, and he's got very advanced Parkinson's. And they live down in Athens, Georgia, which has got a huge medical center and a university and all that. It was impossible for them, for Patty and my daughter Christine, to find a nice place for Joe to live out the rest of his life. It was very, very difficult. And down there, hospice is a for-profit operation, and in some areas, hospice is run by nonprofit organizations, and they have a very different mindset. But you read about it, and I think CNN had a big report, is that we just simply, as a nation, we have not recognized the demographic changes that are occurring with the aged population. And Ned, your comment about doctors is one thing, is it's $10,000 to $12,000 a month to go into nursing care. And And not a whole lot of people in America can afford that.
Yeah, well, George told me that Betty very presciently, I don't know, 10 years ago, established some relationship with this insurance company and has been faithfully paying monthly premiums for this purpose.
For
And
long-term care.
yeah. And so Nelda is there being paid by this insurance. I was surprised that it wasn't a 5-day or 4-day gig. It's only a 2-day. And I spoke with Nelda about it, and she says, I'd love to be here longer. He really does need help. And Betty needs to be able to get out of here. But I've just been given, a 2-day, a week situation here. And there's nothing I can do about it. God knows what kinds of permeations there are, or how decisions are made about how, elder care is given. But I really do believe that I have been in situations where a surgeon, my primary care doctor, said, yeah, Annette, take care of that. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, just take care of it. This was I had a hernia in my stomach, and I wanted to get out there and vigorously do exercise. And this popping out of my belly was hindering me. So I said, I'm going to go see him. But I went to the guy who performed beautifully a very difficult surgery many years ago, a guy by the name of Kinzinger. And he said, no, you don't need that. I said, what do you mean I don't need it? I want to go out. I want to, work on my core. I want to do some vigorous exercise. I said, yeah, you don't have to do that. Why do you want to do that? Does it hurt? I said, no. He said, well, then what's the problem? I said, well, it pops out, and I don't know if I'm going to tear it up or something. And my primary care guy says, get it done. And he said, oh, geez, I guess if you want to, I'll just have to do this arthroscopically. And, he went on about how difficult and how unnecessary. And I thought, what the hell? I want to get fixed up. What's going on? And I talked to my son about it. He says, he just doesn't want to do it. Who knows, when you fix something like that, there's a weakness in the tissues that get sewn back. Maybe he doesn't want to on and on, there's a real.
Daniel talking to you now.
I'm sorry?
This is your son, Dan.
Yeah. So that he's the one suggested, go to UCI and find yourself a gerontologist. They're supposed to care, and they do care about old people. There goes elderhood.
I have one of those hernias too. And my primary care says, don't do anything about it unless it becomes symptomatic.
Wow.
And mine says, just push it back in. Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted it fixed. I got it fixed.
Well, I'm going to tell a story on Ned. So when we were in high school, Ned had a hernia, and so he went to the hospital. I don't know if you did that hernia operation during the school year, Ned, or during the summer or something like that.
Mhm.
But the story, well, at least my fabrication, is that Ned had this very attractive nurse that came in and had to shave him, and Ned got all turned on because she was so cute,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I thought that was the story you were going to tell, Ned.
No, you thank you very much, Pim.
But I mean, we were all of us in the dorm were jealous of you. We thought, well, that's kind of,
That was Barbara, and when
you remember her name. You remember her name.
Why, oh yeah, she invited me to her apartment, and and amazing things.
Handsome guy. That's sort of, look, not that you need to have one more reference to a book, but this particular one, Louise Aronson, if no medical textbook is this, the subtitle is Redefining Aging, Transforming Medicine, Reimagining Life. In addition to being the professor of gerontology at UCSF in San Francisco, she also has a Master's of Fine Arts in Writing. So
Wow.
this does not read like any medical textbook. It is really beautifully written, flows, and just about any, and I always like to judge a book by the index. It's indexed beautifully, because they get computer programs that do it these days.
It's
But
called AI. It's called
AI.
AI.
and they've had it for a little while, but just about any topic, including many of the almost all the topics, and then a few more that we've been talking about. And she has so many just alive examples that she uses from her own work. It feels like you're having a conversation with a gerontologist as you read through it. So I recommend it really highly. I make use of it, keep it around, a lot of tags in it and stuff. So that may be Louise Aronson. I came across it on a talk show listening to on the radio, and I went, who is this person? And later on, because I came in late, learned of her, and then went, oh boy. She was plugging her book. It had just been published just a few years back now.
Have you met
said-
her? She's in your neighborhood.
Yeah, that's right. She is. No, I've not met her. Know of her professionally because one of my dermatology doc is over at UCSF, so come across these different folk. I hang out.
Can you
with-
send us that, Bob? Can
Say
you
again?
send that- Can you send it to us? Yeah, like a text message or an
Will-
email?
Will do, Frank. Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be great.
I agree.
Good request.
So I have a thought. We have appropriately spent a lot of time on George, but how would it be okay if we sort of went around the screen and everyone just kind of shared what their week was like? Because I'd love this 2 hours that we have, but Tom and I were on earlier, and he said it's been a busy week, and I said, well, thought to myself, what the hell is a busy week for Tom? And so if that's something, I maybe you don't want to do it, but I'm to get closer to each other. It'd be kind of neat to know what your week was like. And so, I'm just throwing that out. If anyone wants to pick up the ball and run with it.
Well, I will. I'm bringing up my calendar. As you know, I am living with and helping manage the health care for my friend Karen, who is, able to get around pretty well, but nonetheless has a variety of complications. So, by the way, Tim, my Wednesday, the 3rd is free.
So you are going to come.
Bravo.
I
Bravo.
will be coming
Wonderful, Tom.
to George's that day. The uncertainty was Karen was going to have cataract surgery. I think I started to talk a little bit about that earlier, that had been delayed because of bureaucratic nonsense. But she is having cataract surgery on the 1st. So the 1st and the 2nd are pretty much taken up with that. But after the 3rd and the rest of the week looks fairly flexible. So
Good.
let me give you a little rundown for myself. On Monday, this past Monday, actually Karen and I watched together the confirmation hearings for a niece that she has, or a niece-in-law, I should say, her nephew's wife, who is a lawyer, African-American, a Superior Court judge who has just been appointed to the appellate court. I forget which district, but we watched the confirmation for that on the court's website. And then that was at noon. And then at 2:30, she went to see her orthopedic surgeon for her knee, just a checkup and all of that. Tuesday, also Monday, and Monday is both wash day, which I help her with, and
You mean your bath or?
laundry.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Funny.
It's also the trash day. So, you know, there's 3 different bins that need to be filled and taken down there for compostable, for landfill, and for recycle. So they taken down to the curb. So that was Monday. Tuesday, at noon, I had a Zoom meeting for 1 hour with a client, if you will, for spiritual direction. Somebody who's been seeing me for once a month for about 4 years now. Very nice young woman. And Tuesday also I had my 20-minute twice a week workout, the perfect workout. I decided to get a personal trainer. And we also did a little shopping that day. Wednesday, 10 o'clock, I had a phone Zoom appointment with my spiritual director, Jack Steger. And in the afternoon, went to see Karen's primary care doctor, which was a very, very good meeting because it was the Optum outfit that her primary care is now associated with that really screwed up the possibility of her having the cataract a couple of weeks ago. Yesterday, we spent from 11 o'clock in the morning until 2:30 or more, mostly waiting in her ophthalmologist's office for the pre-op examination for the cataract surgery. He is a wonderful, wonderful ophthalmologist who is consistently at least an hour behind his schedule, largely because he just devotes time to people. And during that, I left and did another 20-minute workout with the perfect workout. And the rest of the day, we did a little bit more shopping, grocery shopping. Friday, well, that's today, I'm here. So that's been my week.
Your week is devoted to Karen, isn't it?
I certainly that takes prime claim on my time.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
And meanwhile, the 2 things that mainly that I'm doing, 3 things I would say mainly I do for myself is reserving my prayer time, and I've lately gotten into both the strength training, which I'm really, after 3 months of it, I am really feeling the results of very positively.
Good for you.
That's so
And
cool.
I'm
That's so
starting-
cool.
Thank you. I'm starting to try to limit myself, but it's hard to because they're so addictive, but to be doing these puzzles. Wordle got me into it. I do Wordle every day. I've discovered 2048 on the ARP website, which is highly, highly addictive. It doesn't make a bit of sense to you for the first 3 weeks that you do it, but then you begin to say, oh yeah, that's what I've got to do. So all that kind of stuff. That's, and
Yeah.
of course I do reading and
Welcome
answering
back, Norm.
all that.
I've been here, just my video doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. So that
Am
was
I
my-
next, Tim?
Oh,
You can be
that was-
whoever.
was
whoever.
a fairly intensive communication with Tim about arranging for the details of his visit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Whoever wants to go ahead. Johnny?
Okay. I've had a very eventful week. My first wife was hospitalized. Her skin cancer had gone to lymph nodes, and then mental. She was in and out of lucid and not lucid. And my kids are spending lots of time now, and she's coming up to the end shortly. So I'm hurting with George and with Kathy. On the trivial side, my cable TV went out, and I had a day and a half with no television. And I realized how much I miss Blue Bloods. I am addicted, and I confess. On the physical side, I think I have a walker, and I go shopping, and I go down to California Pizza Kitchen. I go to shop at Ralph's. I go to the CVS. So I'm getting in a couple, probably 4 miles a week of out there walking with my walker. I now am trying to avoid the 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock time, because all these kids are coming out of school and they're up and down the sidewalks and riding bikes. And I mean, for my safety and my mental health, I'm avoiding that. I guess that's pretty much it. I'm eating well, getting my exercise.
And getting used to a new computer.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And the switch from HP to Apple has been difficult for me. And I still reach up and try to do touch screen on my Apple, and it won't comply.
Yeah.
So I'm
Now,
adapting.
I'm going to. Johnny and I had talked a couple times this week, and one of the things that he is wondering about is whether or not he needs to move into like a continuing care thing. Do you want to briefly talk about that? That you can't live on your own?
Yeah. At this point, when I hear about a caregiver, Ned, you talk about a caregiver that comes into George's place, that maybe that's an alternative too. But, I'm facing the fact that I'm slipping.
Me, I'm a caregiver.
We all are. We're all
Yeah.
slipping. It's a
Honestly.
slippery slope.
So is that, Johnny, is that an independent living kind of facility you might be looking at?
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
Because you're able to do, what the ADLs, the activities of daily living, is what they assess for moving into different facilities.
yeah,
Sounds like
one of the,
you have no problem with those.
my sister
I mean,
connected me with one that has like 4 different levels, depending. You move in, you're pretty much independent, but there are additional services that come. But those aren't cheap.
Hmm.
No.
Those
Right.
don't come cheap.
To
So my
say-
sister's in one of those, and she loves it though because she's able to do a lot of things, and they have a lot of programs going on. So she's got interesting things going on all the time, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, I
let's
went-
let's keep moving. Who's on next?
I'll go on next. I had quite a week. Sunday, I had the pastor's gone, so I had the 7 o'clock mass, 8:30 mass, 10:30 mass, and then I had the 12 o'clock mass, but I wanted to go to opera, so I got my friend Henry Hernandez to do that mass, and then I went off to the opera, and it was awesome. Really had a great time at the opera. Wonderful. And then Monday, I had a sleep study. Hated it. But anyway, when you go and you're supposed to sleep, and they keep waking you up and changing your wires and stuff like that.
And
Anyway,
so
so
what?
it's just-
And so what did they find out about your sleep habits, Norm?
well, that I already have it, but I need a sleep what do you call those?
CPAP.
PAPs,
CPAP.
whatever it is. I'm using one already, so no news. And then Monday I had mass in the morning and goofed around and stuff like that. And then 6 o'clock in the evening, Father Randy gave a talk, and Chris Hernandez. And then on Tuesday, oh no, that was Sunday. Tuesday I had or Monday, Monday I had mass, and then then Tuesday I had deanery meeting. Our Lady had mass deanery meeting at Lady Refuge. That was like kind of fun seeing all these guys that are priests, and then on after that, Will Connor. I don't know if some of you would know him. He was like 2 classes ahead of us, I guess. He wanted to get together, so we got together, and he brought. Sorry, no, he didn't bring. Yeah, he did. He brought a new guy coming in from New York, who's a priest, who going to be working at the VA center, and so he wanted me to help him find a place for him to stay. So I just had him stay here. The I guess you call it administrator. She wasn't happy with that. But the pastor was happy, so it counts. And had dinner with a couple that are going to try to get married in church. And then on Wednesday, had lunch with another priest, and I drove to Sylmar, my old parish, and saw a lot of people there that I'd like to see, and saw my friend Father Malcolm Ambrose, who retired, in there in Sylmar, and had supper with Bob and Bob Guerin and the other priests there. It was kind of fun. On Wednesdays they have a cook who is just absolutely fabulous. And so I love going there on Wednesdays because I pick up all my mail and I talk to people I haven't seen for a while, and then also I had this fabulous meal, and so that's good. And then on Thursday.
Norm, don't you live there continuously, or you live someplace else? And
I live
just
in
sort of-
Long Beach now.
Oh, that's right. Tim told me. Yeah,
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
in St. Matthews. Yeah.
Yes, St. Matthew's.
your old parish.
An old parish, yes,
Yep.
it is. 101 years old. And we celebrate our 100th anniversary when I got here. I felt like it was my 100th anniversary. And went to a prayer service yesterday for a deacon who's very, very sick. It was very nice that people were caring so much about him. They had an hour-long prayer service. The church packed praying for him. Just kind of neat. And then talked to this priest come in from. He's originally from Nigeria, but he's working as a chaplain in the VA, and we spent some time talking and it's kind of cool. And while I was talking to him, Father Randy came in, so I introduced Father Randy, and Father Randy welcomed him, which is nice. He's already here. Father Randy welcomed him. It was kind of nice. It hasn't been too busy a week, but it's been a kind of a fun week. Boy, I went to dinner last night with somebody you might know her, Marge from this seminary. Somebody you know her.
The redhead?
Yeah, the redhead.
Wow.
She
That's
lives near here, so
that's a long way back.
yeah, I know.
She married a doctor, right?
He married a doctor. In fact, he just died, and she has about 5 kids and about 15 grandchildren.
Wow.
Norm, you eat out a lot.
I
You're-
like
you're-
eating
you're-
out, but
Yeah,
because
I-
we don't have a cook here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They're supposed to get us a cook, but nobody's got us a cook yet. So in the meantime, I have to eat out. That's not good for my weight. I've gained some weight. Gotta get cutting down some.
Is that some kind of phenomenon that's going on? Increasingly, I'm noticing that rectories aren't peopled by the normal or the regular folks that I remember. I was in 3 parishes as a deacon, and we had, a cook, and we had a housekeeper and a secretary and all that stuff. And now the women who are in this group that my wife kind of supervises or leads, they come up with food for the priests in the rectory, and there are no cooks, there's no housekeeping. The secretarial help for the parish there's a dearth. There's a woman who the pastor just brought in, and she's decided that she's Attila the Hun, and she's taken over. She's taken
I have
over
one like that.
everything. I mean, she,
part of the reason for that is in the past, when we had all of those people, like a full-time, perhaps live-in housekeeper and cook and all of that, you could get away with paying them next to nothing.
Yeah.
And there were absolutely no
Benefits
well,
or anything, I'm sure.
yeah, there were no legal requirements for employment. Now, you basically have to pay a living wage and a fair wage, and you have to go through all of the legal requirements for employment law. And the Archdiocese does require that, I think if they're 3/4 time employees or more, they do require that you give them benefits, which is
I think that's California law. Yeah.
fair. But
Yeah.
it used to be a lot cheaper than it is now. Now, same thing in schools. There was a time that when Catholic schools were proliferating, basically all the parish had to do was give the nuns a place to live and food and a little booze and cigarette money. And now, now they have to, even nuns who work for the Archdiocese have their own employment contracts with benefits.
Oh yeah. A lot more expensive to have people working for the church than it used to be.
Yeah.
Well, it also has to do with population. I mean, those things were common when you had 3 or 4 priests in a rectory.
Yeah.
Most rectories now have 1 priest. Like for 5 years, I was alone. So we had a cleaning woman who came in every Monday. That's it. She came for 3 or 4 hours on Monday, and we had a contract with her. We had nobody to cook. You cooked yourself, or you went out, or whatever. So that was kinda just the way it was, you know. I had a priest who lived with me for a short time. He died unfortunately a couple of years, 2 years ago. And he had never cooked, he had never boiled water, and he learned to cook. And so Saturday night, we had busy schedules, and Saturday night we cleared. It was forbidden. He cooked, and he went to bed early, like 8:45, and hated to clean up. So he cooked and I cleaned up.
There you go.
And for the rest of the week, you did whatever you had to do to kind of get through. So
Right.
there's a lot of reasons why you don't have that kind of help in rectories anymore. So
And you know,
Yeah.
in the old days, it was not unusual for a pastor who would be appointed basically for life, but to come and bring his own housekeeper or cook
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
wherever his previous parish was and throw out whoever happened to be there.
Mhm.
And
I know-
my first pastor sat me down the first week I was there and says, listen, I want to tell you something. It's a hell of a lot harder to get a new housekeeper than it is a new assistant. So
And we know which one he valued the most, right?
Yes.
that's for damn sure. It was the house. No, it was his dog, then the housekeeper, and somewhere down the line was the assistant.
Associate.
Not associate anymore. Not
But-
associate.
Confession times are also, just being complete, very, very restricted. We have an hour in 3 parishes that are around us, 1 hour here and 1 hour in the 2 other St. Joseph's and St. Mary's. Why? I mean, we used to have 2.5, 3 hours.
People came.
Pardon me?
People came.
Okay, I guess that's it.
You hear incidents with like,
Confessions in the morning.
well, you hear incidents like what Tim told you about, but there are incidents. Common practice is people don't come.
Mm.
Well, we
Maybe-
get
It
pretty
seems
much.
increasingly the case that if you do have them often and are and at the right times, which isn't necessarily Saturday afternoon,
Yeah.
and publicize it, create a spirituality around Sacrament of Reconciliation, people do begin to come.
Yeah, we have quite a few come to ours.
We have one parish, and if you don't get there an hour before it starts, you're going to be there for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. There's the pews just fill, and 3 priests come out, and I also some priests are really wonderful, and they have an encounter with the person who's confessing, and others are just perfunct, just okay, 3 this and 5 that, get out of here, next. It's anyway, didn't mean to bring that up.
And so Bob
Well,
Benoit, how
all of the
talk about that.
conditions. I mean, I think we ought to look at the history of confessing sins. I mean, we begin Mass by asking God for forgiveness.
Yeah.
We anoint people and say in the thing, and then may God forgive you all your sins, without actually celebrating the individual sacrament of confession. And the question, I think, needs to be raised as to, or at least explored, as to, how do we celebrate the forgiveness of sins? And is it only in this one way? Or, I mean, I think this is especially something we ought to be looking into when the state of Oregon passes a law that requires you to violate the seal of confession if someone comes to you and said they've abused somebody.
Yeah.
We ought to be looking down the road as to, for instance, how we give the sacramental benefit of forgiveness of sins in different forms.
These things start in the troublesome West, so watch it. It's a
Yeah.
good point.
Norm,
Someone's
I'd
gonna
like
say-
to put it on your table for a minute, Norm Zupanchek. The thought comes to mind that in line with what Frank said, that are the many coming for spiritual direction, not just forgiveness of sin?
Point. Good question, John.
Yes, good question. But I think it's always been a combination. You know, I don't spend a lot of time with these persons because we have such a long lines. But I usually try to give them some quick, you know, direction direction in their life, because they come in and they're going in a certain direction and they keep coming with the same thing. And so it's a moment to try to give them some guidance on to make some changes in their life.
Yeah.
Have you been using the new form?
Oh, yeah.
Absolution and, right. It still isn't mandated, I understand. What, at Pentecost, it's in the US, the new formula?
Just
How
one
long?
word they changed.
2 words, that's it.
And sent the Holy Spirit, we say poured forth the Holy Spirit or something like that.
Hey, Gary.
Poured
Yeah.
out the Holy Spirit.
Right, Gary's got it down there.
Yeah, no, it's just a couple of words that I forget what they
Yeah.
are.
Poured out the Holy Spirit
It's not
for
a big deal.
forgiveness of sin.
Just a few words, yes.
Yeah, poured out rather than sent, and grant you rather than give you.
Yeah.
Got it. Someone
Hmm.
said, Bob Bono, what's your week like?
Well,
How
I
are you?
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 2 weeks chaplaining a cruise out of
Oh,
Miami.
poor baby.
Yeah,
Poor baby. Poor
very,
baby.
very
Yeah.
difficult, you know. It was 2 different cruises. I was surprised. I knew I was signing up for one, and all of a sudden they had me booked for 2, from Miami out and going down into the eastern San Juan and down in that area, and then back to Miami, and then we went over to Mexico. I find myself not very interested in going for these excursions that they have anymore. So I had a daily mass, and we had Easter mass, and then the following week, the first one was a Sunday evening Easter mass, and then the following week we had another mass that was an Easter mass. And because the ship was always in port on Sunday morning, and they always had the masses in the morning on the ship at 7:30. So I did the Sunday mass on Saturday at 7:30. So anyhow, I had those 2 things. There were a couple interesting things that developed on that cruise that I can go back if you want me to. But anyhow, I flew down to Miami from Cleveland, and that was now 3 weeks ago. And I was going to be flying back to Cleveland, but then down here in Nashville, where I am currently, is where my brother lives, and the parish that he goes to. I had helped them out before when I was moving around in my RV, and they had me doing some masses and covering at least 1 week ago, or might have been a week and a half, whatever. So they wrote me all of a sudden and said, hey, we need somebody to come down and do Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday masses during the week for 2 weeks, because they were having an excursion of people to go over to the Holy Land. And so, you know, all of a sudden I got this email asking me if I could do it, and happily Southwest let me just redirect the return home. Instead of going from Miami to Baltimore to Cleveland, I called them and said, hey, could I just go from Miami to Nashville and then wait here for 2 weeks, and then I'll fly up to Cleveland? Oh, yeah, no problem. So they made the change. So anyway, so I've been here for the week. Interestingly, I was flying up on Sunday, and we were supposed to leave at something like, I'm going to say it was 2:30. I don't remember what the hour was. We didn't get out of there until, you know, about 8 o'clock. Because they had some release of some kind of a fluid in the airport here in Nashville, and there was storms hitting Miami. So we all got in the actually it was a 5 o'clock plan. We all got into the plane and we went nowhere. And then they said everybody has to get out because we can't fly up to Nashville now because they had this one wing of their airport closed. So then we dallied and dallied and dallied, and then it did. So I got home with Dave here at 11 that night. And so we've been having a good week together. One of the things that I primarily do is just look for time to read. And, I could mention a couple of the books if you're interested in that I've been reading, but also Dave, I think I've shared with you Dave's situation that he had come down with cancer, and he's doing really, really well. The medical treatment and care that he's been taking care of. The one thing that he still has a problem with is his right leg is still kind of numb. He can walk, he can do just fine, but he doesn't have any sensation except for tingling coming out of his leg. So he hasn't been golfing with his gang of 12 at a golf course out here. So he kind of re-signed up for a month, and we went out to golf, and I was going to be trying to hit the golf ball and he was going to do the putting. Well, I kept hitting balls into the water. So then Dave said, oh, I'm going to try to hit one. And man, and he started to hit him again, which was really terrific. So anyway, we've had a good time together. Yesterday, we went to a lake that's one of the national, it's not national, but a Tennessee state park that was, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour from here. And we walked about 2.5 miles around this one lake, really out in the woods, but they did a really nice job of putting paths all the way around this lake. And that's where eagles nest.
Oh.
And so we were walking around. We thought we'd see several pairs of eagles, and we found out there's actually only one there. But there was one of the park rangers was there, and he had his camera all set up so we could look at the nest shooting across the lake. And he knew the tree where they were, and they had 3 little babies up in the nest. And so we were able to see these little heads of black little baby eagles, that kept popping up, and mama came back with food or whatever it was. So that was yesterday. We had a really good time with that. Pardon?
What's the name of the lake in the park?
Dave, what's the name of that? Radnor Lake.
Okay.
So
Do they have a live cam that covers it like so many hours
No.
a day? Or it was just it was the park attendant, the ranger?
yeah, the ranger came, and he had he was all the way across the lake, but he had a very, very powerful image that he could be focused on the top of this tree where the nest was and where the babies were. And so we were able to see a little bit of that. And we were walking through. There was, I'm going to say, a 35-ish maybe young woman. She was going through, and she had taken 4 pictures or 5 of this beautiful eagle. And she caught him when he was flying across she was flying across the lake there. So it was a very nice outing. And so I've had the masses here for this week, those 3 days. So it's Tuesday early morning, and then Wednesday and Friday, it's at 9 o'clock in the morning. And then I'll be doing it again next week. And then on Friday, right after Mass, Dave will get me out to the airport, and I'll head back home to Ohio. So I've been away for a month from home up there, a little bit different. But you know, you just make it work. So it's gone very well.
Yeah, nice to have you back.
It's good to
Yeah.
be back.
Really, it's been a while.
I have to go shortly, so. I have a meeting at 3:00. It's 2:55 here now, so.
Wow, yeah, you've got, what, 5 minutes?
The only thing really interesting, on Monday morning, I had to get to the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute for a follow-up on my prostate cancer procedures that I had in November. And I had to do that. Normally they drive you from here, but they weren't able to do it on Monday because the city was all tied up. The Red Sox were playing at 11 and the Boston Marathon was running starting at 9 or 9:30. So I did find a way to go south. Fortunately, I grew up here and get in and I had good news from my oncologist with respect to treatment recurrence of prostate cancer.
Good.
That evening, I went for mass and dinner at the Jesuit house at Harvard University, where one of the priests helped in the parish. He's the Parkman Professor of Divinity at Harvard, and a scholar on Hinduism and what's called comparative theology, not comparative religion. Someone mentioned, I think last week, about someone taking a concept like God or mystery and finding out what are the nuances of it in different religions. That's kind of what comparative theology does, rather than saying, you know, Buddhism is structured like this and Hinduism like this, et cetera, et cetera. So he's very much an expert in that, but it's always an interesting place to go because of the people. In fact, one of the young Vietnamese Jesuits who was there had just run the marathon. So he was able to have supper with us, but needed all sorts of tender attention and care. So
You know,
the rest I spent, you know, I was down at my home and I'm trying to put in a new heating system and, you know, dealing with things. I stopped at the local Benedictine Abbey on the way down because some of the other men here wanted to get tickets for March 4th, when James Martin is going to speak there. So that was kind of an interesting little side adventure. And then I have a bunch of coffee guys, people whose our children grew up together, and we meet. They meet Monday and Wednesday. I'm usually there on Wednesdays, and that's always a very interesting kind of thing. So and you know, then I came back here, and today, of course, it's kind of busy because I had that funeral, and I have this, and I have a meeting at 3:00. But the interesting thing about being here, one of the things I notice is a lack living alone in my home. I don't say mass alone, so getting to mass is something of a. And one of the nice things here is, you know, mass is here every day, and there's a chapel here. You can go and spend some time, etc. So that's really a nice benefit. Obviously, it's not something I could have gerrymandered something together or put something together, etc. You know, while still living at home, but it's kind of a nice benefit here. I also am a reader, so I'm reading a small biography of Pope St. Gregory the Great, and also a book by, if you get to read something by him, by an Australian Cistercian named Michael Casey. He wrote one book on grace, which I've read, and now I'm reading one called Cenobium, you know, Cenobite, you know, it's about reflections on monastic community. I'm finding all sorts of different communities in the Catholic Church, and here I find little bits of things from other, you know, there's a certain, as you get older, you move towards contemplative prayer a little bit more. There's kind of a drive to monasticism here, and yet if you go in town and say this place is like a monastery, you say, "Oh no, we got our TVs," you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
Frank, you know what your problem is? Like a lot of priests your age, you need to figure out how not to have such a dull and boring life. You're absolutely, it's absolutely amazing you know, what you're doing and how you're doing. And I try to imagine, again, from my unique perspective, what it would be, what it must be like to have you as a colleague in this house of 50-something priests who have experienced, you know, the traditional canonical priesthood. There just aren't enough of us out there, but you especially, where you are fully canonical and able to move in those sort of circles. Must be an incredible experience for them.
Sell ourselves short. There's some beautiful stories men have here. You know, there's a very strong emphasis of Latin America here, which
You
sets us.
mentioned that, yeah, the with the tradition in Boston of the society.
On us pushing to send priests, and those priests who went first are here now. And
Yeah, you'd mentioned
Yeah.
in the past having some conversations with them.
it's not a clerical tone, it's kind of relaxed and gentle and, you know, mañana kind of tone, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have to go. I'm sorry, but I won't be here for the closing prayer, but I pray for you all and pray as I do every day and pray for George especially.
Amen.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bless.
Frank.
Bye,
I
Frank.
wonder if we should call it quits also.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Well,
Anybody for a concluding prayer besides Tim?
I'll go.
Go.
So, dear God, we just thank you for this time together with our brothers, being brothers together and sharing our time and sharing our stories and encouraging each other and building community. Thank you for this time, and we ask you to continue to bless each one of us in our journey, especially pray for our brother George. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Have a good
Take
week.
care, guys.
Good
See
week.
you
God
next
bless
week.
you all.
Enjoy
I may
it.
miss it next Friday because I have to get up north when this is happening.
When
Okay.
we see you again, Bob. Take care.
Okay,
Bye.
God bless.
Bye, everybody. Have a good
blessings,
one.
everybody. God bless.